All right. Good morning, everyone. You kind of see what audience you have by asking good morning. When you're second day in, you've got the bourbon bar, you got all the smoking bars. We've got a little of that up here also, right? So want to thank everyone for joining us for our presentation today. My name is Mark Atos. I'm CMO at Inlight Software. I want to thank you for the time you're going to be spending with us. I also want to thank our great panel for participating. When we knew we were going to have a presentation here at the Gartner Data Center Conference, we thought, what's the most important thing we can convey to the audience? And we went, oh, the most important thing always is our customers. And so we turned to our customers, and it's a challenging time, right? It's December, we've got the holidays coming up, running out of time, you have to spend all that budget, you got to plan for budget next year. And so I thank my panel extensively for coming out here because it's challenging to get out in December. So we decided to have a panel, and so our agenda is very simple today. I'm going to give you a short introduction to Inlight, less than 3 to 5 minutes, a few slides, and then we're going to turn it over to the panel and have them talk about their experiences, why they use data center service management software to help automate and increase the efficiency of their data centers, okay? Then we're going to open it up to questions in the audience. So put on your question hat or whatever type of clothing you have for questions and get ready to ask questions of our great panel here. So without further ado, I'll go into sort of our presentation. For those of you who don't know who Inlight Software is, we make software that helps companies automate the management of their data centers. We talk about data center service management. I'll talk about that in just a second. We have hundreds of customers who use us. Some of them are quite small. We have a company in Seattle who has 25 racks. We also have companies using us with over 30,000 racks. But they come from a broad set of industries. They vary in size. But what they all have decided is they don't want to manage the data center with spreadsheets and Visio drawings anymore. And so this is what we hang our hat on, is we make customers successful. This is all we do. We have been doing this for quite a while. We were the first company to provide a DCIM solution, right? Data Center Infrastructure Management, for those that aren't familiar with the four-letter acronym. We were the first company to really introduce this type of solution, and our founders really worked in a data center, and they saw this need to help automate the management of data centers. And we've been doing this for over 11 years. It's all we do. We don't sell hardware. We don't sell other software. We focus on helping companies automate the management of their data centers. As a result, we are one of the leaders, one of 3 leaders in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, in the Gartner DCIM Magic Quadrant, right? The other 2, Emerson and Schneider, they sell hardware. That is their main business. This is all we do. We are passionate about automating the management of data centers, right? Of providing software and making our customers successful. As a result, we have a 99% customer retention rate. We hear horror stories about companies whose DCIM implementations didn't work out, and it bothers us, right? Because we know it can be successful. Our customers are successful. We currently have about 6 to 10 migrations occurring of customers using other solutions moving to Inlight, and perhaps some of our panel will talk about that. And lastly, we're the first company to introduce data center service management, which is the next evolution of DCIM. So what is data center service management? It's really 3 things. The foundation of data center service management is DCIM. You've got to manage your hardware. You've got to be able to manage all the physical infrastructure. But that is so 2010. You have to raise the bar and be doing more, right? It's just not enough to be managing your hardware. You've also got to be managing the workflow, the processes, the policies. I used to work in a data center. My last data center was in Oracle Corporation. And the operations folks just think servers install themselves and they run themselves. But we all know there's quite a bit of complexity going on in a modern data center. Migrations, tech refreshes, consolidations. So we help you manage the workflow, the policies, everything that's going on, all the moving parts within the data center. And lastly, a data center is not an island unto itself. You need to tie it into other systems. And so we were the first company to have a built-in messaging framework that allows you to tie into ITSM, to tie into virtual systems, to tie into BMS systems, into alert and monitoring. So we have a built-in communication framework. We have over 50 connectors to a variety of the popular systems such as ServiceNow, BMC, HP, VMware, Microsoft. Tomorrow we have a webinar if you want to hear how we integrate into ServiceNow. But for the moment, this is DCSM. What we talk about is not just managing infrastructure, it's about delivering a service, right? All of you in the audience are tasked with delivering compute and storage to your organization and hit your SLAs in a cost-effective fashion. And that's really what data center service management is all about. And so as I mentioned before, that's the quick introduction. These are the stars of the show. I really want to thank you guys all for coming on board and presenting here at the Gartner show. And I'd like you all to introduce yourselves, but in that process, I'd also like you to answer the question, what is your company's sort of main initiative for the data center in the foreseeable future? So in 2016, 2017 perhaps, what is it you guys want to be doing with your data centers? And then we'll get the conversation going. We'll ask other questions. Again, we're going to be turning to the audience if you folks have questions, but this is really your show, so I'll let you take it away, Terry. Hey, you're closest to me, so I thought you'd go first.
And I apologize in advance. My voice does not normally sound like I've been gargling razor blades, but it is what it is. Tony Gibson, been in Verizon for almost 18 years. It'll come up in February. Started as a young lad doing mainframe and then evolved from there. My background is just about everything. I've done most anything you can do in the operations, the I&O space within the data center and outside of it. Project management, server and database. I even have some nasty ASP code that I would never show anybody that I wrote 10 years ago. And even COBOL and assembler, which is downright frightening to talk about. In the last 6-7 years, I've managed a team of technicians who support just about every framework you can imagine in the I&O space: capacity, performance, event, CMDB, and DCIM. And I think I'm probably the oldest DCIM owner, if you will, of Enlight. We actually bought the solution in 2009 when it was still GDCM. So that tells you how long we've been using Enlight. Where we're planning on going in the future in our data centers. Well, you've probably read in the rags about Verizon has been going through a transformation. We're moving away from just being a pure wireless carrier and a telecom and a carrier to trying to provide content, trying to do different things in a digital workplace, trying to be that provider of that content. As a result, it's a trickle-down effect. When you look at our data centers, we have 45 data centers across the globe, if you will, and it is across the globe, almost 2.5 million square feet of raised floor. And that's everything, MITSOs, COs, even labs and all kinds of stuff. So Enlight was born in the wireless business unit, and we've had very good success with it. So now, starting next year, we're going to be expanding it to the rest of the business. There's going to be some kicking and screaming and gnashing of teeth from some folks because they've got their homegrown tools they built 25 years ago. But I think the fundamental premise of what we're working towards for next year in our data centers is consolidation and modernization. I mean, we've got some data centers that are 35 years old, and if anyone knows what Modbus is, we've got plenty of that running around as well. So we have a huge opportunity in data center consolidation and trying to get things down, and Enlight's going to be our starting point, having a common framework, a common source of truth of the inventory, which we can tie to our power subsystem, cooling subsystem, et cetera. So we can really start building up as opposed to just, as Mark said, the data center just takes care of itself. We've got to be proactive and step forward and be a leader across our IT shop and show other parts of the business what we're doing in data centers. So that's where we are at Verizon.
So Brian, you want to go?
All right. Am I on? Yeah. Brian Desberg, Director of Enterprise Data Centers for Sutter Health. For those of you that don't know Sutter Health, we're mainly in Northern California. We have historically been very regionalized, and over the years, a lot of folks have been doing things their own way. So we have folks in East Bay, West Bay, South Bay, all around Northern California, with, kind of on their own, whatever they want to do in the data center, they do. The last couple of years, we've been going through a consolidation not only of our staff and our organization, but also data centers. I think you're going to hear a lot about data center consolidation. I think we're all going through that, and probably a lot of you folks are too. So, you know, we talk a lot at Sutter about high reliability. We talk a lot about simplification and ITSM. And so we're in the process right now of implementing what we call our ITSM solution, using a few different tools to do incident, problem, change, release, all that good stuff. And Nlight beautifully ties into that. So, you know, you talked about your DCSM,
Yeah.
DCSM solution. You know, once we have those tools in place, we'll be able to connect to all those processes and be able to put all that workflow in place so that no matter if you're in San Francisco or Oakland or Sacramento, you're using the same tools, you're looking at the same data to allow us to do proper capacity management, incident management, problem management, release, change, config, all of that.
Great.
This will all eventually get into a CMDB. You know, we're in year 2 of our Nlight implementation. So at this point, we've done assets, so every conceivable physical asset in our data centers, and we've also done the power. So I think I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but network would be next.
Great. Jake?
Let's see, was it working? Okay. Jake Dotson from a little small company called Cisco. A few of you may be familiar with it. I'm actually running the capacity management supply team for Cisco. Over the last probably 5-6 years, we've been working with a homegrown tool, which many of you probably have. Over the years, you know, we've seen issues with it, seeing resources kind of move on, lose focus, lose development. So we actually looked for, you know, an enterprise solution, and probably about a year ago, I spun up a project to go find that. And actually using the Magic Quadrant from Gartner, all the research, we narrowed it down to a couple that we did a POC on, and really, Nlight turned out to be the best one for our business. What we can do with it and what we're going to be doing with it is really digitizing the physical layer of our data center, getting all the assets, like my colleagues here was saying, getting all the assets, having one source of truth, but then, like Mark was talking about earlier, the integration to other applications. That's where it's really going to be key, is getting it to your VM utilization tools, your storage utilization tools, reporting mechanisms, and then any internal, you know, applications as well. So that's really the future that we see down the line. Now, we've gotten direct initiative from our CIO saying, no more building data centers, consolidate with what you have, make everything fit. So, you know, with Nlight, we're going to be able to do that. It's going to show us where we have the available space, where we have the available power to make those changes down the road.
Right. Dave?
I'm Dave Filas. I'm with Atos. I'm with the data center group in North America. I'm a data center project manager. My focus is mostly around large capital renewal projects for the data centers, so construction, retrofits, things of that nature. I have an IT background, so I kind of drew the short straw, and DCIM also fell to me. So that's one of my projects is to roll that out in North America. We're new to the Atos family. We originally came from Xerox with their information technology outsourcing ITO division, and they spun us off, and Atos acquired us in July of this year. So we're part of a much larger global family now. So there's been a lot of changes on the data centers at 2 levels. One is figuring out how we fit into the bigger global family now. The other big initiative we have going is Atos had North America data centers, Xerox ITO had North American data centers, so we are trying to figure out data center rationalization. Which ones do we need to keep? Which ones need to go away? should we own them? Should we lease them? We're trying to figure all that out right now, and exactly how we're going to consolidate this myriad of data centers down into a fewer number of data centers to lower the operating cost on them. In addition to that, one of the other things that we've been working on is attempting to standardize tools and processes across the data centers. Right now, everybody's been running their own direction on how they do things. We have a lot of in-house tools. We're starting to move away from that, getting everybody on standard processes, procedures, tool sets, things of that nature. So that's the biggest things that we're seeing right now.
I'm Josh Nyer. I'm in charge of the data centers for TransUnion globally. I've been with the company for just over 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I actually was in charge of the America's data centers for HSBC. So going from very large enterprise data centers to what I'd say somewhat smaller and medium-sized data centers certainly had a little bit of a shock value, but more importantly, the lessons that I learned working at HSBC had given me the opportunity to find a better solution for DCIM. At HSBC, we were Aperture Vista 500 and upgraded to 650 customers. And, you know, our team who ran the data center realized the importance of all of this information. But more importantly, it's like that when you're down at the end of the stream, you're grabbing for data to help you perform your duties. And so I was recruited to TransUnion actually to help build a data center and also then to work on the data center strategy. And since then, we've already moved 3 data centers after building a brand new data center. Enlight was there from the get-go. We actually brought in several different companies, but we had our eye on Enlight from when we were back at the bank. And so after actually choosing Enlight, we then went right into building the custom workflows so that we could actually conform to processes and procedures that did not exist at TransUnion. By having that expertise, but also the ability to work with the development team at Enlight, allowed us to customize these workflows that were used actually to help everybody get along, not just make the data center team happy, but the overall conclusion was that everybody is a lot happier because there's one place to go. You know what you want, you know what you need, and if you don't know, then you go and find out before you put your request in. So the use of Enlight has actually helped us out tremendously in not only helping with our operational effectiveness, but even more so is as we move these data centers, I say consolidate them is a better term, our OpEx is much lower every time we get out of another data center. And so we have a new leadership team at TransUnion, and they're very aggressive, and they want to actually do all the right things and be as efficient as possible. So as we get this leadership support, it was easy for us to make sure that as we move these data centers, we were able to do it with confidence. And that confidence is actually what continues to grow every time there's a successful move. And it's even better when you have people who say, isn't it just maybe better for us to wait a few more years, maybe massage their systems into our current systems? Well, those few years certainly cost hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million plus. So being able to move these data centers effectively has actually helped us warrant the investment in Enlight, but more importantly, it gives us that confidence from our executive team that they know we're doing the right things for them. In the future, actually 2016, which is just a few weeks away from us, our intentions and plans are to start to integrate DCIM methodology. And I'm just going to use a simple example as to say we use FieldView to monitor our power and environmentals, and we are going to tie FieldView, Enlight, and currently we use CA Unicenter, and we're going to then be able to identify any kind of a power or temperature issue, have Enlight then report what is in that rack or area, and then go into our CMDB and pull out all those services that those devices are actually maintaining, and then to be able to give the proper support teams a message that says, you just lost half your power in one rack, everything is still fine, but here are all the devices that are within that rack. Now you make the decision. because from a data center management perspective, we don't always know when's the right time to swing systems to another side or rely on high availability that may have a small interruption in service. The service and support staff of DCSM really need to make that call. So I feel that for us to integrate and make all these connections, the data that's in Nlight as well as the data that's in our CMDB, they need to be joined so that people can make very fast, immediate decisions on what to do next.
Great, thanks, Josh. So you guys all are at sort of different paths of the journey, right? You're at different stages in the journey with DCIM. I think, Tony, you've been with us 6 years. And Jake, I think you are our newest customer. Cisco Systems has just selected us, and I sort of want to turn to you and say, why? So how did this project get justified? Because inevitably, everybody in this room has tons of priorities, and everyone has a lot of things going on, and you end up have to justify budget, and you have to justify the effort to put in this type of solution. How did that come about at Cisco, and what do you think was sort of the main driver behind doing something like this?
Well, I believe so we kicked off a new initiative of how to redesign our data centers, and part of that is having a digital, trying to digitize our data center, and with that, you need some kind of, enterprise solution tool that can actually help you get there. And, we've done plenty of extensive research with Gartner. They've helped us out tremendously, and one of them was talking about having a DCIM solution for your global strategy. So that actually helped back it, and taking that to our leaders actually helped. I mean, it wasn't really asking for the funding issue. It was, where do we want to be in 3 years? With the way that the technology is growing, the way that the environment is growing, and how are you getting all your resources together, especially with, power is a major issue today. Tracking it, you have individual systems, you have a BMS system, you have certain applications you run. Cisco, we have our own, Cisco Energy Manager. So tying all those together to have one front end, not just necessarily where all the data relies in, but actually can you connect it all to it and get reports back to be more efficient in your data center? How do you get the biggest bang for your buck? I mean, you spend hundreds of $millions on a data center, you want to utilize all of it. You don't want to have a 25% utilized data center, but you don't want one that's 99% where you can't expand for growth. And we looked at other solutions, and we actually chose Nlight, and I think some of the biggest reasons we chose them was some of their key features that other suppliers didn't have. One of them was like the built-in workflow process, like Troy was talking about, or Josh, I'm sorry. That was key because you can actually track and modernize. You don't have to worry about integrating to another application, which is something that could just break down the line. So we're excited. We've actually started the journey. It's a big road ahead of us. I mean, I have probably 2 years to 3 years of plans out, and learning this week that you don't really try to do a 5-year roadmap anymore. You do a 2-year, because you get to 2 years and you start over anyways. So we're looking forward to it, and hopefully it'll be very productive for us.
Great. Well, we're going to eventually turn it over questions to the audience, but one of the things I want to make sure we get to is what is your advice, right? Like if you guys were to say to somebody, hey, we're thinking about doing this because I've heard it in the booth, people say, oh, we've wanted to do this for 5 years, right? So that when you're going to take the leap, what would be your advice? And feel free to jump in here and give your thoughts on what would be the advice to somebody that's just thinking about it.
I'll speak from where we started back in 2009. When we looked at our data centers, the fundamental problem we had was we didn't have process. So the strongest thing I can advocate to anyone is we used Nlight to force process. That's bad juju. Anyone in this room knows that. You cannot use software to drive process. And my advice would be to harden, fortify, and make sure you have your processes locked down about managing of information coming in and out of the data center, information being assets. Because the foundation of a DCIM tool is inventory, period. You don't know everything that sits on that raised floor. You can't do capacity planning. You can't integrate it into your CMDB, et cetera, because it is the foundation of that ecosystem. So my strong advice is fortify your processes and make sure you've got a sound baseline to start with. Most guys in the data center start with Excel spreadsheets, Visio diagrams. Those are gold. Get them, harvest them, and unfortunately, even in Verizon, I've still got guys who manage things in Visio, along with in the DCIM tool. They can't help it. They're old school. They want to know things that we just simply don't capture yet in the tool, like power tracing, etc. So start there. That would be my strong advice to anyone, is once you've got that, then the tool's the easy part. Don't do like we did and start with software and then build your processes in arrears, because it took us a few years to get there.
Yeah, one of the things that I would suggest is go into DCIM knowing what you want to accomplish. Don't just go out and buy software packages and buy a bunch of tools and start installing things just because it seemed like a good thing to do at the time. I originally came from a company that we rolled out DCIM, and we went into it just having all sorts of grandiose ideas that we're going to inventory the data center, we're going to track all the power, we're going to track all the networking, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do all the processes, workflow, so on and so forth, and we're going to do all in 6 months. And we implemented the tool, and once we actually walked out onto the race floor and said, okay, now we're going to go find these network connections in an existing production data center that's 15 years old. It was just not possible. The amount of physical labor it would take, I'd have to have a team of 100 people working around the clock for 12 months to get it done. We just couldn't do it, so we eliminated the network connections, we put the power connections on hold, and we were just going to put anything new in there. So start your scope small. Don't plan on boiling the ocean from day one.
I want to echo actually that, because the ocean can't be boiled that easily. But more importantly, find your target spots. You can't actually expect to do it all in one fall swoop. In fact, actually, you need to strategically figure out what are your most important assets and where do you want to actually keep track of them the most. So if you have multiple data centers, find the ones that are going to actually stay the longest, and then do as much work with that one as possible. I had mentioned that we had implemented Enlight versus the spreadsheets that was actually used. And what I found actually at TransUnion was everybody just relied on one guy. They called it the Mike Lemon spreadsheet. I said, what do you mean you call it his spreadsheet? Well, he's the one who inventories it all the time. Well, I went and looked at the inventory sheet, and Mike Lemons wasn't always doing a good enough job because there were misses. And so that was where we actually instituted the use of the workflows, because if you want in or out of that data center with your equipment, you have to use the workflow. And then the caveat to that is, and this is the downstream effect, is monthly we produce a report for our contracts team, and then they actually look at what has been removed and installed so they can make sure that all the maintenance is applied or taken off of those devices, because now they have a true record that says we removed it. That took 1.5 years of us to actually evolve to that point to be able to say, now we're confident and comfortable to say, here's everything that comes in and out, and it's a click of in fact, actually they clicked the button. Before we had to produce that. That took a lot of time. Now we don't even know what's been taken in or out, they click a button.
For me, one piece of advice I'd give is that, DCIM is not just about the data center. So you need to go out, you need to talk to the rest of your operations folks. You need to explain to them what the capabilities are of a DCIM solution for the network team, for the storage team, for the telecom team, for the server team. So you can do lifecycle management, right? It can help you with that. It can help you understand what your network connections are. It can help you understand how much storage you have, where it is. It makes it easier to justify when you're walking into the CIO's office that it's not just a data center solution, it's an enterprise solution for all of IT. I'll give you a really basic example. I was sitting in my boss's office. He's the CTO, and Sutter Health, we're healthcare. We're all about the patient experience, right? And if things go wrong, people can die. It's that simple. That's extreme, but that's how we look at it, right? So it's all about high reliability. Well, if somebody says, I used to get the question a lot, what's running an XYZ application and where is it? Well, it was on spreadsheets and maybe it wasn't accurate. And as we started to put the information into Nlight, we would see that there were key critical tier 1 applications, maybe running, let's say, on 10 servers. Well, guess what? All 10 of those servers were in the same row in the data center, powered by the same RPP, connected to the same UPS. So what's that tell you about high availability if we were to have an issue in that rack? We would have a critical tier 1 application go down. Now that we have the information in Nlight, I can literally, with a few clicks, pull up an application. It will tell me where all the servers are for that are supporting that application. It will tell you where the storage, and it will also tell you where the network connections are. So you can split that out. You can say, okay, I don't want 10 servers in the same row or the same rack. I'm going to take 2 of them, I'm going to put them over there. I'm going to put 2 of them over there. So if we ever did have a power issue or a network issue, we don't lose an entire application.
Great. So the takeaway for all of you is DCIM saves lives. Just keep that in mind. I actually would like to open it up to questions from the audience. I think we have a microphone that's coming up. I have a question up front. Of course, it had to be the furthest location away from you, right up here. She's coming. Is it on? There you go. It's on. Okay, I'll repeat the question. The question was, what are the most important metrics that DCIM provides or that you track? Is that pretty much your question? What are the most, in terms of ROI, what are sort of the metrics you guys hone in on?
I love Josh's example, and we do the same thing. Maintenance. I mean, everyone has contracts with IBM, Oracle, HP. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have mentioned all 3 of them in the same breath, but it goes without saying, we've got hardware all over the place. Your maintenance schedules are different. That, to me, is huge, because we've actually been able to reduce our maintenance spend because now we know exactly how many pieces of equipment we have from Oracle that is within an EOSL or not. And that's huge because T&M can kill you from a maintenance perspective. That's one key metric. But the key thing, and I know Josh and I talked about this last night, you have to define those critical success factors first. That is one of the things that, I mean, kind of to Dave's point about you need to have a strategy up front, manage and develop those CSF, then you can get the KPIs to measure them, and then the metrics, because you will drown in data if you just use pure metrics. So that would be, so that maintenance was a key one. The other one is square foot per rack. Little things like, okay, one data center is 23 feet, which is pretty tight. And then I got another one that's 90 square feet. And you can see that disparity. That gives you opportunity to realize you can compress. Those are the types of metrics that can help you, especially when you're doing data center consolidation. But you can also use the tool to do simple things like I've got, to his example, you've got one rack with 10 servers in it. How can I model this going to 4 different corners of the data center? I mean, those are some of the other metrics you can use, and that improves your reliability metrics and ties to MTTR. So, I mean, you could really get real crazy real quick if you're not careful. So I would start with CSFs. Maintenance is a key one. Power, space, and cooling is another. But more importantly, where can you compress and continue to collapse the footprint and save money?
Josh, you want to jump in?
I was just going to say, in case you're not familiar with the ability to space things out within a rack, you know, we've done some reports that are around $10,000 to $14,000 every time we install a rack. And that rack is going to stay there for a long time. So what we'd like to do is maximize the use of that rack and be able to actually then determine, are we getting the most out of that installation of the rack? And even though it may actually be in there for 10 years, so the ROI of the rack, it'll make itself pay off. It does. But we're there to maximize the use of that rack and the power. And Nlight allows us to make very smart, educated decisions on where to put that next device. That right there is what allows us to then be able to efficiently utilize all of the resources that are available to us in a, you know, small square footage area, call it a rack or a floor mount device.
Any other metrics?
Yeah, so I was gonna actually mention, we kind of heard this week that, you know, IT is not free anymore. Back in the day, IT used to supply all the equipment, the hardware, the racks for any internal customers. The metrics we're actually going to be using it for is chargebacks and showbacks to our internal clients. We can actually, we can have an owner on a box. We can know how much power it's taken. We can say, okay, you're using 6 RU out of the cabinet. That's going to be X amount of dollars you're going to be charged every month or every quarter. So then you're actually getting revenue back into your department that you're charging your own internal clients.
Are you going to put a margin on that? Just curious. Just kidding.
I got to go to Hawaii somehow.
There you go. Are there any other questions in the audience? Okay.
Chuck? Yeah, real quick to pick up on the ROI. What were some of the first things that you were able to really measure and then bring up to your senior management and leadership to show that there was value? What are some of the categories on there?
I'm just going to jump in real quick on this one because it's hard to actually really capture ROI when you're talking about process improvement. But the thing that I've noticed, number one, is that especially implementing Nlight, we brought everybody together at the table to implement Nlight, and immediately, all of a sudden, everybody seemed to have gotten along a lot better. And installations took almost no time whatsoever, where before they may have taken 2-3 months. You shouldn't take that long to install a server that you just put on you just got it delivered. You're probably paying maintenance on it, and you're also paying for it, and it's going to take 2 months to install it. That is what I think is our fast measure of ROI, is our teams are working better together, and the equipment that we're paying tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for, are being installed and utilized much quicker than they were back in the spreadsheet days.
Yeah, our ROI with DCIM, we found, is extremely difficult to quantify because it's a tool, and like everything that falls into the tools category, they're not making you money. If you put, Microsoft Windows 7, Windows 10 on a desktop, Windows is not making you money, it's costing you money. If you buy HP OpenView and you're monitoring your network switches, that's costing you money, it's not making you anything. So anything that falls into that tools category is very difficult, so you generally have to fall back off of the hard dollars and go on to the soft dollars. How does it help from a process improvement perspective? We spent a lot of time looking at how we could better utilize the workforce. If we had people going in, updating spreadsheets, then they go in and update the Visio document, and then they go update these 18 other locations, they're spending an awful lot of time in different tool sets, really accomplishing nothing except doing updates and multiple CMDBs. So we focused a lot on that labor savings, where we could reallocate that employee time to more productive tasks and speed up SLAs and things of that nature.
Okay. I think we have another question in the back, and then the woman in the leopard. Yeah, so go for it. I think we'll get to you next.
Along the lines of resources, can you give me an idea for each of you based on your maturity of what you're actually tracking, whether it be assets, power, network? How much FTE do you have invested in managing and supporting the platform?
Well, I can give a quick short answer to that. I can tell you that you need a full-time administrator in the data center to manage it, and I don't have one yet. So,
don't you support it?
Well, yeah, I don't support it, but yeah, I mean, my team consists about 17 people in the data center doing operations, so rack and stack, and also facilities. There is a lot of activity. There's a lot of need for somebody to own the tool. So I'm trying to get a little bit more headcount so that I can pull one person off to be a full-time administrator. We do limit the amount of people that have access to the tool. Everybody's heard the term garbage in, garbage out. And right now we don't have all the integrations to our other tools right now. So we don't have the workflow in place. We're using it really within our own team, and eventually when we implement our ITSM solutions, we'll put those connectors in place and we'll get our data into a CMDB and have the workflow. But right now, it's still kind of siloed within the data center, but I would highly recommend, based on the size, that you have full-time administrators using the tool.
I would echo that. When we purchased the tool in '09, we also bought a CMDB at the same time, and it was me and 4 other guys supporting those 2 plus monitoring and 10 other tools. Thankfully, within a year, we were able to get a dedicated admin, and he's been our admin for going on 6 years. And we've just now designated a secondary to kind of back him up when he goes on vacation, because before that it was me, and you do not want me anywhere near a software product. Or probably many of us. But that aside, I think the key thing is having that single administrator that can administer the tool, build the integrations, understands it in and out. But also you need an ecosystem around it. My CMDB administrator and librarian, they too can go in and do things and build things in inline in the background. So if you used a matrix type organization structure, I mean, Brian hit it. You need a single admin, guaranteed. And after the 6 years of managing the solution, it is mandatory. But you can use the rest of your ecosystem to build some of those integrations. That way, you don't get yourself in alerts if you only have one person.
Yeah, I would suggest, figure out who you want to own the tool long term. That's something we're still kind of struggling with right now. For the North America facilities, for admin of the system, you're looking at them. Not only do I have to own the project, I'm also currently the admin of the tool, and that's something I need to find somebody who's going to take that over and wash my hands of it, so I'm not doing tech support for the application. But I've just found out in the last couple of days we actually have a team in France who does that full time, so that's something I'll eventually be transitioning over to that team, so I don't have to deal with day-to-day maintenance.
Okay, I don't want to run out of time. I think there's another question.
I was just going to say, a lot of what you're talking about sounds very mode 1, to use Gartner nomenclature. What are you guys doing beyond the rationalization, consolidation, process improvement, which could suck, all of our time to deliver new cloud services or apps or customer experiences, or those things we also have to do?
Great question.
So I can answer that. So with the Enlight tool, we're actually going to integrate the tool with our own internal kind of like we call it e-store, which is kind of like a front end to do all types of ordering. You can order, a laptop. You can order an application for your mobile phone. You can order even our VM through our own private cloud. So having that front end, that's actually going to open it up to other parts of the business as well, where they can go through there and request space, power in a certain data center. We're trying to limit it now to, if they want a production environment, then we'll let them know where it's going to go based upon the space that we have. We do have 26 data centers that we manage across the globe. So it's, having it more automated down the line is going to save time, money, and definitely get in front of all the executives and make it easier for everybody, in the company to actually use the tool. I mean, I don't want this tool to be just a little pocket for a couple of people to use. Broadcast it like, Brian was saying, to other areas, operations, network, storage. Everybody can feel free to use it. That's what it's used for. Let's make the company better, not just one department or one little organization.
And specific to your point about Mode 2, and I've had this dialogue with my leadership. Mode 1 and Mode 2 is a functional definition. At the end of the day, it's still a piece of steel on the floor. And these guys can tell you, you've got a capacity plan at that level and then go up the chain. And that's a pipe dream I've been living in for a couple of years, is how do I get application performance management tied to system performance management, tied to the data center. Then it doesn't matter if it's Mode 2, Mode 1, and I'm sure there'll be a Mode 3 before too long. Gartner's got to keep expanding things. If you do it correctly at that level, when you do the capacity planning up and down the chain with solid data at the core in your DCIM solution, integration in your CMDB, integration in your ITSM solution, then Mode 1, Mode 2 becomes almost secondary, because then you can use the request management pieces to make sure that you can control what comes in and out.
All right. Any other questions? We're almost running out of time here. Okay, I think they're going to shut me down here pretty quick. So I want to thank all of you for the time you spent. Can we give a round of applause to our